we went downstairs, Daniel stopped me and told me to be quiet. After listening out carefully, we heard
Nightmare Files.
My name is Andre and I'm 23 years old. This story happened 2 weeks ago. I was at my friend Coates' house drinking beer, watching a basketball game. During halftime, Coate asked me if I heard of an app called Randonautica. I told him I heard a little bit about it, but I haven't used it. Coate told me he hadn't either and asked me if I wanted to try it out. I said yeah, and Coate downloaded the app onto his phone. Coate asked me what we should search for. After a few suggestions from the both of us, Coate came up with missing persons. I told him good idea. He typed that into the app and he gave us directions through GPS. We got in the Coate's car and drove to where the app told us. The app took us to an unkempt field. It was kind of behind a big park. We got out of the car, walked around the field, but we weren't surprised because we didn't find anything or anyone. I was about to say to Coate, come on and let's go, until he pointed to something in the distance. I looked to what he was pointing at, and it looked like a girl. She was waving to us, and then she walked out of sight behind a big bush. Both Coate and I looked at each other, not sure if we should laugh or be concerned. Coate stared walking towards where the girl was, and I tagged along. As we were walking, I asked Coate, who does he think that girl was? He told me he didn't know. We got to the patch of bushes where the girl went out of sight. We didn't see her or anyone else. That was until I saw a gray hoodie on the ground. I picked it up to see if there was anything in the pockets. There was a crumpled up note. I opened it up, and there was a first and last name written on the note. I showed it to Coate. His response was, oh my God. I asked him what was wrong, and he said about 6 or 7 years ago in his older sister's class, a girl went missing, and no one knew what happened to her. She was never seen again. And the name that was written on the note was the girl. I looked up and I saw the same girl in the distance once again further into the field. This time she didn't walk away. She just stood there watching us. I told Coate we should leave and he agreed. We jogged back to Coate's car and headed back to his house, leaving the hoodie in the field where we found it. That night I had a dream. I was running in the field, hearing a girl scream for help. But no matter how fast and how far I ran towards the cry for help, I found no one. I woke up the next morning in a cold sweat. I checked my phone, and Coate had texted me. He told me that he saw that girl last night. At least he thought he did. She was outside his house. He looked out the window after hearing her calling for help. When he went out there, nobody was there. I recently discovered the app Randonautica and have been looking up videos on YouTube about the creepy and strange things that people have discovered while using the app. One Friday, I wanted to use the app for myself. I asked a few friends if they wanted to join me, but they were either busy or weren't interested. So I used it myself. I didn't know what to search for at first, but after thinking of a few ideas, I decided to search for things undiscovered. I put the location in on my GPS in my car and headed towards the destination. The app took me just outside of a town to a rural area. There was a huge abandoned building that had been there for years. I was aware of it being there, but I had never been there before or knew what the building was used for. I parked my car in an empty, desolate parking lot and approached the building. One of the doors had been smashed in, so it looked like someone had been there before. I turned on my iPhone flashlight and looked around. It was pretty much as I expected an abandoned building to be, vandalized, litter scattered around the rooms and graffiti on the walls. I heard a noise coming from one of the floors above me, so I headed upstairs to check it out. I wasn't scared, to be honest, because I tend to think rationally and thought it was just a bird or some kind of thing that got into the building. One thing I noticed as I was climbing the stairs, there was a foul smell getting stronger with each floor I reached. I got about to the 4th floor and went to check the rest of the floor out, as this was where the bad smell was coming from, as well as that noise that I heard. I followed to where the smell was coming from, still using the light on my iPhone. I walked into one of the rooms and looked around. I saw blankets, cans of food that were open and some not, plastic bags, but I didn't know what was in them, in an old dirty toolbox. But this didn't seem like where the smell was coming from. There was a closet near where the blankets were. I opened it up and a foul odor hit me in the face. There was a big black trash bag that was stuffed in the corner of the closet with flies surrounding it. I couldn't look for long as the smell was almost making me throw up. I had a bad feeling as what could have been in that trash bag. And after seeing that someone was squatting here, I didn't want to be here when they got back. So I walked briskly down the stairs and stopped when I thought I heard something. It sounded like a door being slammed shut. I continued listening, but I didn't hear anything else. I looked up at the top of the stairs and saw 2 people looking down at me. One of them was a man who had a beard, long, stringy black hair, and was looking at me like he was furious, and the other person watching me had the same expression, but I couldn't make out any features. The next thing that happened was I heard a loud bang and some kind of shouting, and that's when the man started running down the stairs. I ran as fast as I could out the building into my car. I couldn't have driven away from that building fast enough. Later that night, the events that took place began to run through my mind. Who were those people? What was that man planning to do with me if he caught me? And were those people watching me the whole time? And what was in that black bag in the closet? For the past few weeks, me and my friend have been using the app Randonautica. One night recently, me and Daniel went to the movies. When the movie ended, it wasn't that late, so we came up with the idea to grab some food and use the app. We searched for creepy locations, and the app gave us a destination to drive to. The app was taking us to a quiet part of the highway. We had to pull over by an abandoned rest stop and walk the rest of the way, because there were no roads heading into where the app was telling us to go. Me and Daniel walked towards the woods and climbed over an old rusty fence. We carried on walking into the woods with about 5 minutes left until we reached our destination. We came prepared and brought with us flashlights, as we've been doing this often. We finally arrived to the location where the app was leading us to, and it led us to a cabin. It was hard to tell if someone was using this or it was left abandoned. Daniel asked if we should go inside and look around. I said I don't know. It could be someone's property. Daniel eventually convinced me to check it out. There weren't any cars around or lights in the cabin, and we were kind of in the middle of nowhere, so I agreed. We entered the cabin by going through the front door, as it was unlocked. Just like the outside, the cabin looked abandoned, but also like someone had been living there. The downstairs was relatively normal. We went upstairs and there was only one room. We assumed it to be a bedroom, and after opening the door, we were right. The room was not normal, however. Someone had nailed pages from what I assumed was a Bible all over the walls and ceiling. Scattered on the floor were more Bibles and Bible pages that had been ripped out. If this wasn't creepy enough, there was a bag sitting on the bed. I looked inside and there was a small Bible, a box of matches, a large rusty pair of scissors, and a hammer that had blood on it. I showed Daniel what was in the bag, and he said we should probably leave. As we went downstairs, Daniel stopped me and told me to be quiet. After listening out carefully, we heard men talking in the near distance. Then I noticed, through the window, about 6 or 7 flashlights in the woods approaching the cabin. We quietly left through the front door again and started jogging back to where the car was. We hopped the fence and drove back home. That night, Daniel texted me with a picture of a news article that he had read that was posted 2 days ago. Man brutally murdered in his home. He was found with Bible pages stuffed in his hand. I keep thinking that those men by the cabin we found are responsible for that man's murder. And if we had been caught in their cabin, me and Daniel might have suffered the same similar fate.
Nightmare Files.